Everything in this book hit for me. Every single part. Like, it was a thriller, a through and through thriller, and I just loved it. Hey guys, welcome back to Francesca's Books. My name is Francesca, these are my books, and here we talk about all things thriller books. I'm your go-to thriller girly. And today we're talking about the books that I read in August and rating them, and then what I'm going to read in September, and P.S. it gets spooky. I actually can't even tell you how much of an amazing reading month August was for me. Like, I know I say, oh yeah, I've had a great reading month. I think this was the best reading month I think I've ever had, genuinely. So I read 9 books in August, which is a lot for me. Normally I read between 7 and 8. I think 9 was like... But I also had a much slower reading month in July, so I feel like we're kind of balancing out. Only 2 of these 9 books rated less than a 4-star, so you're in for a ride. So without further ado, the first book that I read in August was An Eye for an Eye by M.J. Arledge. This one was in like at least 2 or 3 of my previous videos, like on my TBR. I've been going to read it for a very long time. It's very, very highly recommended. I only gave it 3 stars. So this follows 9 serial unalivers who are given lifelong anonymity, but it follows them, and it also follows the families that they hurt or did their wrongdoings to, the police, and then also like their probation officers, and there was far too many characters for me. The concept was great, like it sounded great, and it was great, and it was executed really well. Like, you didn't really know who to root for. There was a lot of moral issues and like just a lot of like nods to the justice system, but I think as a thriller book and as a fiction novel, just didn't work for me. There was too much going on. It was also really long. It was 530 pages, which for a thriller book I feel like is a lot, and if it was 530 pages of like necessary information, fair enough, it wasn't. There was also, I know this is like such a first world problem, but some of the names were really, really similar as well for like similar roles, like just against different criminals. So there's like an Emily and Olivia who I just could not get right in my head for so long. So all of that in consideration, I gave it a 3-star. I think if you knew what you're getting in for when you're going in, fair enough. But I think for me, it just wasn't thrillery enough. It was more of just like a contemporary about what's going on with thriller aspects. And then I read the last book of Alice Feeney's that I had to read on her backlist, and it is Good Bad Girl. So this follows a missing baby from a supermarket 20 years ago and somebody who's unalived in a care home. And these narratives intertwine and make a great story. So one of the residents in the care home, Edith, is teamed with like carer Patience, and they just form this like little duo. They're really, really close. I think Patience reminds Edith a lot of like her daughter, and it's just a good time. And then when all this starts going on, they decide to like play detective. There was quite a few narratives in this which just came together so well. This book had so many mixed opinions and was kind of half the reason why I didn't just go into this straight away when it was released. I feel like I saw a few reviews and was like, it kind of kept going down and down the TBR, and I thought, I'm gonna read it for completion of like Alice Feeney's work, and I'm so glad I did. It was brilliant. If you don't read many thriller books, you're kind of like more of a well-rounded reader. I feel like the plot twist at the end of this book would just absolutely like blow you away, like mind-blowing. But I think for me, I kind of did see it coming a little bit, just because like I read so many thrillers, they do seem to like follow a little bit of a pattern, but I gave it 4 stars. Then I read Someone in the Attic by Andrea Mara. I absolutely loved No One Saw a Thing, gave it 4.5, so I thought I would try and check out more by this author. And this book opened with an absolute bang. There's this main character, Andrea, at the start of the book, and she's like unalived in the bath by somebody coming down from the attic, and then it flips to like the actual story, which follows Julia, who has a husband and 2 kids, and the daughter keeps coming to her mum, and she keeps saying like, I'm seeing these videos on TikTok like of our house, but like no one's posting them, and they're like under an anonymous name. And then her son keeps coming to her and is like, Mum, I can hear footsteps in the attic, I can see somebody like through the vents, and it's kind of creepy. I did really like this because it was fast paced, and they like flashbacks to what had happened to these like set of friends all those years ago worked really well for me. Like, I loved how that fed in. But I just feel like the name of this book was a little bit misleading, because what I've told you is kind of like as much as what happens in the attic. It's kind of like a lot more domestic than that. I kind of just wanted it to be a little bit more creepy, to be honest, but maybe that's just me. And also I just found it ridiculous that if your son was coming to you and telling you like every single day, Mum, I can hear someone in the attic, Mum, I've seen someone in the attic, like, you wouldn't just check once and then just forget it. Do you know what I mean? You'd probably look a little bit more. Then I read my favourite Shirley Le Pen book so far, and it is Everyone Here Is Lying, which I gave a 4.5. This follows a guy who comes back from like having an affair, and he gets back to the house and he's like a bit riled up because they've ended it, and then he sees his daughter and just like completely lashes out and puts like everything on her, and then next thing she goes missing. This was like quite a classic missing person book, but there was a different spin on it which isn't like typical from missing person books, but obviously I can't really say much more than that without completely ruining it. But I really enjoyed the way this played out. This was literally so close to a 5-star, like I can't even tell you. The only reason it didn't get a 5-star because the ending just like like took these like such a weird turn, and I'm just not sure that it hit for me. On reflection, I do think it's probably a bit harsh. Like, I do think this is a 5-star read, probably. I think I was just feeling a bit mean on the day. So we're gonna stick with a 4.5. Then the next book is like quite out of character for me, I feel like. It is Strange Sally Diamond by Liz Nugent, and the reason it's out of character is because it's not like a classic psychological thriller. It is very much like a How to Kill Your Family or Blood Sugar vibe. And that doesn't normally work for me, but this had so many good reviews, I just thought I would try and see for myself. And you know what? I did actually really enjoy it, like surprisingly so. Like, this book for me was so much better than like those other like thriller, dark, memoir, contemporary style books. Like, it's a very specific style of thriller, but this one was the best that I've read. So it follows our like weird kind of kooky main character Sally, and she's very socially awkward and has a crazy traumatic childhood. So when her father dies, she literally just puts him out with the rubbish because that's like what he told her to do. So that kind of sums up how crazy she is. So this is a story of kind of like Sally trying to turn it around for herself, while us as the reader is understanding like what's happened in her childhood to make it that bad. And it is told from dual point of view, and you're not sure how the other characters in the other point of view like relate into the story. So she's in her 40s and has this like amazing supportive circle and like makes all these friends as a socially awkward 40-something-year-old. And I'm thinking like, I can't even make friends as a 20-something-year-old. Like, how is she making so many friends as an adult? Like, it's so unrealistic. Like, that's the most unrealistic part of this book. So I had a really, really good time up until about the 80% mark, and I thought, I'm kind of annoyed that like I'm going to be proved right and this is a 5-star and it's like amazing. But then literally with that, the book just fell flat, and I was like, really? There is like a good message at the end of this book about generational trauma, and I do appreciate that that's why the author went like in that direction, but because of that it got bumped down from a 4.55 to probably a 4 for me. So I ended up giving this a 4-star in the end. And then next is the best book that I read in August, the 5-star, the It Girl, and it is The Drowning Woman by Robin Harding. Everything in this book hit for me. Every single part. Like, it was a thriller, a through and through thriller, and I just loved it. So it follows our homeless female main character Lee, who is just in a whole host of problems living out of her car, and then it follows Hazel, who is this like wealthy, like married rich, who lives in a nice gated suburban community woman, and these two meet by chance, complete chance. And Lee, the homeless main character, actually saves Hazel from drowning in the lake like where they live, and that is how the connection is formed. So this book was told in 4 parts, and at the end of each part there was like an absolutely cracking plot twist, and I think that's why it like kind of kept me on my toes, and I feel like that is the way to win me over as a reader, is to like put in those plot twists like as you go, as opposed to like a huge one at the end that just makes you think like, what have I even just read? Another author that does this amazingly is John Mars in What Lies Between Us, and I feel like it had that vibe of like plot twist every like 80 or 100 pages, and it just kept you really, really gripped. Also Lee, our female main character in this, I just absolutely loved her as a character, and I don't normally form like attachments to these characters. I can like feel for them and they're believable, but I was rooting for this character like I've never rooted before. This was a straight 5-star for me. I finished it, there was an incredible epilogue, and it couldn't be anything less than a 5-star, but my only maybe note, tiny little note that would have made it like a 6-star forever amazing book like I Let You Go, that is a 6-star, would have been if these two female main characters had a bit more of an engagement, I think, towards the end of the book, and kind of like work together a little bit more. Cannot say a single more letter than that without ruining it, but if you've read this, I think you might know what I mean. But it's still a 5-star, just take it, take the 5-star. Then I read The Breakdown by B.A. Paris, which I liked but didn't love. Like, it was a good book, but it was just a good book, you know? So it's a solid thriller with an unreliable narrator who is driving home one night, and then she sees this car pulled over, and she's like thinking, I could probably help, like it's the middle of the night and it's on like a really country road where no one would really be, but she doesn't stop. She drives home, and then she just get this like intense paranoia, like she just can't shake the fact of what would happen if she had have stopped, especially the next day when in the newspaper the woman in the car was unalived. So the title of this book is quite clever because it's like a breakdown of the car and then a breakdown of her life, basically. The last 30% of this was really, really good, but it just didn't make up for the first 70% that was basically our female main character just losing her mind. Then the next book I read was Let Me Lie by Claire Mackintosh, and this was the last book on her backlist that I had to read. Super sad. Been putting it off for ages because I just didn't want it to end. She does have another book coming out in early 2025, but I mean, that's just way too long to wait. So this follows a woman who a year after her parents have both committed suicide, she's just like, that wouldn't happen. Like, there must be some sort of foul play. She had no idea that there was even any problems in their lives. So as all our female main characters do in these books, she decides to go digging, and then she very, very quickly realizes like she just wishes she'd have left it alone and just accepted it for what it is. So there was a dual point of view as well. So that was our female main character, and then there was Murray, who was like the detective, and both of these main characters were so well developed. Really, really rooted for both of them. Fantastic characters, and that is what Claire Mackintosh always does so well. Especially like on the detective side of the plot, I feel like a lot of detectives in books are just very like copy and paste, and Claire really just gives them a proper backstory, and like you're just as invested in their lives as the actual main story by the end. And that's kind of like the only way I could do detectives, if they're given that believability. So I gave this 4-star. It wasn't my favourite Claire Mackintosh book, but it was still a fantastic read. And then the final book that I read in August, I told you we had like such a good time, and I thought I'm going to read a little bit more by B.A. Paris and try and like get through some of her books to rate her as an author to you guys as well. So it was Bring Me Back. And I'm also going to shout out the person in my comments on my last 4 or 5 YouTube videos that's been like, read Bring Me Back, read Bring Me Back. I finally read it, largely due to your comment, I'm not gonna lie, so here we are and here is my review. So this follows Finn, whose life unravels 12 years after he lost his service station. After he lost his girlfriend at a service station. So 12 years later, he's settled and he's actually moved on with her sister, which I feel like is kind of like the first red flag in this book. And that's when he starts getting these anonymous emails and just like really suspicious like little Russian dolls hanging around everywhere. So I had absolutely zero expectation for this book. I won't lie to you. I never see this being talked about across any like book platforms. I don't really know why, because I loved it. I loved it. So before I give you like my actual review, I'm going to caveat by saying this is a very basic book, okay? So if you are like a complex literary thriller reader, you are not going to like this, like categorically not. It's a basic concept, and there's basic characters, there's a basic plot twist, but it absolutely did it for me. I loved it. Proper popcorn thriller. It was such a page turner. Like I was like, yeah, come on, tell me what happened, tell me what happened. And there was quite good supporting characters. I think they were probably better than the actual like main characters, but the plot twist literally got whiplash. Literally got whiplash. Have not had anything happen to me like that at the end of a book since Silent Patient. Easily. So I gave this book 4.5, okay? And I loved it, but there was some flaws. There was some plot holes, I'm not gonna lie. So take my good review with a pinch of salt, because just because I love this, I'm just going to caveat until you all come for me and be like, that was rubbish. So that was my August reading wrapped, and then these are the books I'm going to read in September, and I'm going to say this is a mixed bag. So I'm actually going away on holiday to Greece for the first week of September, so I had to like pick this TBR for a couple of books to read on that trip that are like more like summery thrillers, like summer vibes. And then when I get back, it's going to be like full-blown autumn, so then I've got like some spooky books as well. So this is a mixed bag. There's definitely going to be someone for everyone in this TBR. So the first book that I'm going to take with me next week, which is like a honeymoon thriller classic, is Every Vow You Break by Peter Swanson, and I love this author, so I have so much faith in this that I bought it without even reading the synopsis. And it follows a woman who's married a very wealthy guy. They go on their honeymoon, they're in like absolute luxury, and then she sees someone from her past that she does not want to see. And that is absolutely all I know about this book, but I mean, they've got some little deck chairs, there's a plane, it's a thriller, it's by a good author. Probably gonna like it. And then I've also chosen a rom-com to take with me on holiday, like as my palette cleanser of the month. Don't worry, there is no more rom-coms. However, this one is a little bit different, and I feel like the thriller girly in me is gonna like this as well. So it is The Takedown, and it follows this girl who wants to stop her sister from getting married because she's marrying a criminal. So she befriends the FBI agent who's like looking into him, and it's kind of giving me like Lana Myers from Mindfuck. I've just reread it. Tiny bit wrong, less Lana Myers, still good. So she's the one gathering intel for the FBI, and she needs to befriend his bodyguard. That's the romance. I've actually not read anything by this author, and I've also not really heard them being talked about, so I'm interested to see if this one's good. Then I was so excited about this next book, and I can't even tell you like just how buzzing I was opening the package. I literally dropped it all over the place. But Alice Feeney herself sent me an advance copy of Beautiful Ugly. Signed by her and everything. Maybe it's because I've been talking about her so much recently, she thought I needed a copy, but I definitely did. Anyway, so that worked. So this is due for release in January 2025, and it follows our male main character who's a writer, and one day he's ringing his wife, they're having like a lovely conversation, and she's driving, and he's telling her like some really good news, and then he hears something weird on the phone goes dead, he goes to find her, not sure how he knows where she is, but she's not in the car, but her phone is, the keys are in the ignition, and the door's open, and like, it's not a break-in, she's not crashed, and that's it, he doesn't see her again. And that's when he's just minding his own business, and he thinks he sees her, like, in the crowds, or just like around town, so maybe it's a missing person story. And then the next 3 books are like through and through spooky season, super excited to read. And when I was like compiling my spooky season, like actual TBR, every time I searched, there was one book that just came up everywhere in terms of like what you need to read this for, like this October, and it is The Sundown Motel by Simone St. James. This is kind of like matching my outfit. I feel like I should carry this around. Anyway, this follows a woman whose auntie went missing 35 years ago in the Sundown Motel, and she goes back to try and find out like exactly what happened, but make it paranormal. That's kind of all I know about this. You guys know I don't like to know like loads about my books going in, but this one is recommended by everyone. It has an incredible Goodreads rating, so I'm definitely going to get to it in September. And then something a little bit different for me in September, but still spooky season vibes. I'm going to read Cackle by Rachel Harrison, because this is kind of like everything in one book. I think it's like thriller, romance, contemporary, but just like mainly like the Halloween vibes. So it follows a woman who moves to like upstate New York to like a little village away from Manhattan after her boyfriend's dumped her, and she basically makes friends with this woman who's just like an absolute enigma, and she just cannot wrap her head around it. But the main reason why I'm attracted to this book is the back literally says, a deliciously dark feminist tale of witches, bad ex-boyfriends, good coffee and friendly spiders. At me next time. I feel like this is just really going to put me in the Halloween mood, and one of my thriller friends over on Bookstagram actually rated it 5 stars, so I trust you, Emma. And then the final book I'm going to read in September, I've only chosen 6 this month. I want to give myself like a little bit more freedom because I'm just not sure what mood I'm going to be in. But the last one I'm definitely going to read is Incidents Around the House by Josh Malerman, and it took me so long to get my hands on a copy of this. It's not published in the UK, it's only published in the US, and all of the US like thriller booktokers are talking about it, and I was like, I need a copy. It's taken me weeks to get one, but I finally have it. So this is told from the point of view of a child. She has a normal family life, a mum and dad, everything's happy, but she also has this thing called Other Mummy. This one is for my horror readers, I imagine. But I am quite excited as well to read like from a 8 or 9-year-old girl's point of view. I feel like that's going to be really interesting. Like even the actual way the text is laid out is quite like childlike. And everybody's been talking about this and everybody's rated it really highly, so I'm really excited to see if I rate it as highly. So those are the books that I read in August and what I'm excited to read in September. Let me know as always if you've read any of these, if you liked any of them, if there's any I should bump up my TBR, and I cannot wait to see you next time.